Hello, evening again. Back for a quick stream, just doing some commentary on the Crazyhouse Team League match between RapidVariants and Crazyhome. So this is a board one clutch, and just before they start, I'm going to very quickly jump back to the Team League page, and the match you can see is just here between the Giant Slayers and Hazy House. This is the board one clash, and just going back to the game they've just started. Crazyhome knight f3. I see the finisher watching in the chat. He's board one for another team, and I think there's still a little bit of a delay, so I might appear to be lagging if you're watching the game on Lichess as well as on Twitch. So, as I was predicting, Crazyhome likes to throw in some random openings. He does that against pretty much everyone if he expects any preparation. So b3 f6. I wonder how many games in the database with b3 f6. Looks like a pretty rare position. The player's taking their time already, and it's quite a funny moment to mention Crazyhome's suggestion of a 960 Crazyhouse World Championship, which I'm very much in favor of. And Crazyhome is one of the big exponents of non-theory and get his opponent out of book. Already thinking a lot on move number 3. I'm not quite sure what he's thinking about. Why not bishop b2? Maybe he's even considering bishop a3, just before the e-pawn has a chance to move forwards. Now that would be a funny position. Bishop a3, g6. Alright, something more logical and straightforward. c4. Not sure what to say about this. Yeah, either bishop e6, so I guess you could trade and replace the pawn back on d5. So bishop comes back. Trading would be good for white with the bishop c4 coming, and then something will land on f7. So it's important to try to keep the white pieces away from the square f7, especially if you're going to play the move pawn f6 in the opening so early. So this is a good counter to d4, bishop b4. He must have been expecting d4. So still a little bit of a hole on e6. I wonder if black is going to spend a move defending e6. So it looked like bishop b4 was very strong, but actually bishop d2 is a surprisingly resilient defense, because I don't see any forcing sequence for black. The knight on d4 is suddenly very well placed. The bishop covers c3. White doesn't seem to have any problems out of the opening. And black has to worry about the square e6. So, hello, ominous. Yes, don't tell me I'm lagging a bit. It is on purpose. Yep, so as expected, pawn at e6. I'm a little bit surprised black didn't play pawn at e6 himself. Hello again, Petharine. That's twice in one day. But I guess if pawn at f7, which piece? Probably sack the... No, actually, I'm not sure about sacking the knight. Then white's going to have a knight at e6, and then you're going to worry about g7 and also hitting the queen. So black has to be very careful. Maybe he could play king f8 in response to pawn at f7. It's not what he's intending to do from the opening. I mean, black would really like to castle next move. But on the other hand, black playing with no fear, yeah. On the other hand, if king f8, it's easy to chase the knight away, and you can start collecting these pawns, and perhaps even for free. So, okay, unexpected move, pawn at h5. There's no square for the bishop. What to do? This is a conundrum. What do you do with black here? That's a good move from Crazyhome. He's playing very well so far in this game. Do you castle and just take back with the h-pawn and then answer bishop at f7 by king takes? So then white only has a rook in hand, but there is another check coming on c4. So Pethidine says pawn at c2. And what are you hoping to collect another pawn for b2 if the queen moves away this way? Yeah, I mean, you also don't really want to trade here and allow some bishop to land on f7 quickly. So it's a tough decision. I'm really not sure what to do for black. Sorry, I didn't see the 2 pawns in hand. I just wasn't watching the number. Yeah, 2 pawns. So I guess queen c1, but then bishop takes h5. So, okay, pawn at c2, knight takes. What happens then? If bishop takes h5, sorry, not with the knight on c2. Pawn at b2 first. Yeah, already so sharp, says Ominous, after 11 moves. And Crazyhome is going into the confession booth where you whisper to the audience. So the grandmasters in top-level chess events do the same. So he says, my opening, or the lack of it, has been a success. I was tempted to play bishop b5, but my position's a bit loose after that. I have to control those bishops before they run amok. Yeah, so especially this one, it's good to get rid of that before there's a pawn landing on c2. So black's idea here, trade a knight and then try to dislodge the knight from c2. It's not that easy though, because I'm assuming black will just respond king f8, and this fake queen has to be taken. I mean, you can't allow queen takes d1, so white will have to go queen takes a1, and then I'm not so sure whether bishop c3 is really any use for black. So let's say, I think it's a good choice against RapidVariants to play this sort of non-theoretical position. You can see he's taking his time. So king f8, queen takes a1. Not sure what the next move is going to be. I mean, if e8 was defended, then you'd sack the queen and go knight at c2 check. But black will have to spend a move playing knight c6 first. And after knight c6, what happens? So perhaps a trade and then do something to cover c2. Crazyhome saying, I feel like I have a fair plus, as in advantage to white. Yeah, I would certainly take a white in this position, considering the lack of activity of a lot of the black pieces, the weakness of the king. It doesn't take a lot to make some serious threats. Yeah, knight at d7, so he's relying on a mate threat on e8 in the end. But there is king e7, which is usually a good response to. So to come close to the pieces here keeps them. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of clumsy, the pieces here. So you'd like to be able to play knight at d5 check, but then it's a bit hard to pick up the knight over here. And so Crazyhome will really need to play a move like bishop d3 to cover c2. And there's also knight d5 and then bishop takes, but then it's easy to block, and the bishop is not really the piece that he needs, so probably just bishop d3. Yeah, I'm not so sure about giving black an extra knight, and because it's so easy to block this check. And you're no closer to getting the piece that you need. And actually by filling this with a pawn, then even if white has a knight in hand somehow, all black has to do is to guard c6, and then suddenly there's no knight drops anymore. So I don't see why Crazyhome didn't just go bishop d3 first before a knight d5 check. He's saying he wished he could hit f6. Oh, because the queen is keeping an eye on f6. Maybe that was one idea he had of knight d5 check. So I agree with Ominous that RapidVariance's position is better than it was like 5 or 6 moves ago. Now what to do with the knight on d7? I mean, it looks good, but not that effective. Could he somehow pull it back to e5, and then there's a queen takes e5 at the right time? But he has to pick up a knight. I mean, he can't really do anything without a knight. Even some idea like knight takes f6, g takes f6, bishop at g7. It's worth a look, but black's counterattack may be dangerous. Yeah, on the previous turn, I mean, not right now. So what's the idea? King e2? Or just king f1? Probably king f1 is the safest square that I can see. So I miss this bishop at g5. I guess he's just trying to open the square, clear the square f6 for the pawn. RapidVariants in a bit of a time trouble here. I mean, obviously I've been commentating a lot of 1+0 games, but it's a relative time trouble for 5+5. So yeah, instant threat here. Bishop takes f6. So getting rid of the bishop. Do you just take f6 anyway? You might as well just take f6 anyway. And then perhaps king takes e6 is the only move. Yeah. So take the queen. Okay. So black is given up on defense, because it's just about impossible with the king on e6, so and now black has to just throw everything in and hope for the best. Notice the bishop covers h4, so black will have to attack with the pawns. But my feeling is that white should survive and go on to win. So if I was playing white, what would I do? My first thought is actually to play king f2, because I would answer rook at g2 with king f1, and I don't see any follow-up checks because the bishops do a great job in defending backwards. So somehow this h file was open, but yeah, again notice the bishop covering h4. You could trade, but there's no need to give the opponent more pieces. So RapidVariants really testing Crazyhome's defensive skills. Now I'm starting to favor black. He's going to have problems if he goes to g3, because rook at f3 very strong. Bishop at h3. It's like mate in 3. Yeah, maybe he's missed bishop at h3. So he would have to go to g2 first, but then still bishop at f3, king f2, rook at g2, king f1, pawn on e2, bishop takes, king takes. Probably king g2 was the best hope for survival. But yeah, I felt like if he was more careful with the king walking skills, the cloud walking skills, and then he should have got away. So the idea is that you want your opponent to drop a piece right next to you, and then if it's a rook, you move diagonally to the rook, and then all you need to do is make sure the pawn drops covered, the knight drops covered. It's not easy to do in time pressure, but yeah, I think pawn at h3 should have been answered by king f2. There was also a knight at g4, but then I think either king e1 or king e2 would have been safe in that case. Alright, so we have game 2. It's only a short match, a 2-game match of 5+5. And we have knight g5 against the Perk. So, bishop c4. I've had a couple of games against pawn in training. What's his other handle? Someone will know in the chat. And it's actually a bit scary. Like if all you know is knight g5 is meant to be good, and then you don't know any other moves, which is pretty much what I know, then it's actually a bit scary to start sacking all your pieces and then hope to find something after you sack. Because I think in the games I've played, e5 was a move for black, and then if you take, the knight comes here with tempo, and then you got to decide which piece to sack on f7. I mean, pretty much by playing knight g5, you're committing to sack a piece sooner or later. So with the knight sitting on g4, RapidVariants has to be careful if he moves the bishop away and then the knight leaves. There's a knight at e2 check with a mate coming, so that's why he's put the new bishop on the board. See, ominous. Says Crazyhome is attacking himself to death. Yeah, I think he had a lot of chances in game 1. So knight at h6 seems like the only reasonable way to guard g4 and f7 at the same time. So you would assume here at some point that white is just all of a sudden going to trade a lot of pieces and then keep dropping them back once he sees the right sequence of checks. And that's the whole idea of knight g5 and bishop c4 so early. So knight g5 is actually attempting to refute the whole opening. And it's probably the most brute force approach. I mean, there's also a very early bishop sack on f7 before black castles. So it's either pawn at g5 and take the knight, or knight at g5, which presumably would have to be answered by something defending on e8. And bishop at e8, for instance. Hey, okay. So this is game 2. I'm not sure whether you caught game 1. But it looks like Crazyhome threw away a big advantage. Had a lot of attacking chances. So yeah, this is already a very difficult position to defend, because once that knight goes back, there's no possibility of a counterattack against the white king. And that bishop on c8 is a really important piece to get rid of, because I mean, just look how good a control the white pieces have over key squares like h3 and f3. So white will now pull the trigger and just take everything on f7. And I think this is already game over. So it is going to be a short stream, this one, because I'm going to hopefully get up in the morning and with all the exciting events on in about for 4.5 hours time. And of course, if you weren't here for the previous stream, that includes the Elite Crazyhouse Arena 3+2. So it's for over 2100 rated players, and of course also the titled arena is on with a lot of prize money. So only for title players. I unfortunately don't have a title, not that I would be any good in 1+0 bullet anyway. Here we go, the tripling up of the bishops. And oh, this is just devastating. This is cruel. Cruel punishment for Crazyhome. I think here's where Crazyhome just wants to go back to the start and mix up all the pieces and play some random game of 960. Mixu Chess says, I've heard about that arena. The finisher, Mixu Chess, is, what would you say, the founder, the proprietor of the Elite Crazyhouse Arena. And him and Katask are always the first to sign up for the latest arena, and they tell each other, go the finisher, go Katask. And then sometimes they don't end up playing, which is sad. But anyway, I haven't played that many myself in the last couple of months. Right, what do we see? Bishop takes c3. Now, I've been expecting the last couple of moves that White is just going to trade everything on f7. Well, I'm not sure why it hasn't happened yet. So what about just knight takes, knight back at h6 check? I feel like RapidVariants is the sort of player who would see a good move, a bit like me, I guess. That I see a good move and then I'll just sit and wait and think of a better move, and like wanting to find the absolute most precise move in every position. And that's why he's quite strong at slow Crazyhouse, like 5+5. So queen takes f7. Yeah, you can also do it that way. Wait for the queen to land, but you got to be careful if black has two knights not to allow a knight at h3 check. So take queen takes, knight at h6 check. And if the king goes to g7, if you take this way, you keep the knight on g5, then you've always got h3 covered. So as long as the knight stays on g5, there's no possibility of a counterattack with knight at h3. Yeah, and even knight takes f7 is possible here because black needs two knights to mate on h3 and then f3. So black's best chance here is to take once and then play king h8. Oh, actually, no, then there's knight at h6 check. King g7. I'm just trying to make sure there's no forcing checking sequences. But if you don't see any, surely you just have to take the knight. Otherwise, I mean, how do you respond to the threat of knight takes h6 check otherwise, if you don't take here? And of course the key defensive piece for black is the bishop on c3 that keeps the king safe on h8 or g7 if, in the case of knight takes, knight at h6, king g7. So there may be some really sneaky move that I'm missing for white here, which just totally destroys everything. But I'm actually expecting... Oh, well, just king h8. I was actually expecting RapidVariants to play a move like rook at h3 or even queen at h3 on the last move. I guess you can always do it now. Rook at h3 looks fine. Queen at h3 also looks good because you're threatening. Queen takes c3 would check. Yeah, rook at h3. I think it's quite a sensible move. Yeah, so mainly defending, but also threatening a sack on h7 with check. So knight at g5. And again defending and attacking at the same time. So good advice to always do that if you can. And you know you're responding to the threat and defending the key square, which is h7. Yeah, so the finish is just reinforcing that point in the game chat that they're multi-purpose moves. Ooh, there is a knight at e2 check. But watch out that there's no bishop at g7 check, and then overrun him with two knights. Check here, queen at g7, queen takes e7. So Henya is asking, can they listen to your stream? Yes, but there's quite a bit of a delay, so it's not actually real time. So even if they're listening, even if we're making some sort of sense, it's not going to help them that much unless they want to wait a couple of minutes. But if they wait a couple of minutes on every move, then it's obviously they're going to run out of time. So Crazyhome is just deciding if it's safe to go knight at e2 and take the rook. Ah, that's a good move, bishop at e5. So yeah, I also do the same in my own games because I played a couple of Crazyhouse Team League matches in the last week or so. And as long as I make a big enough delay, then I don't think it has any bearing or influence on the match at all. And it means people can still watch if they want to, almost live. So any actual threats if he takes the bishop? What's the idea? Queen at h6? I don't really get it. Pethadine, nice result for Neil before Zod. And by the way, I should say, if you have a different name on Twitch than you do in Lichess, I have no idea who you are. So you might be my teammate for all I know. But if I don't know who you are on Lichess, then I can only guess. Alright, what's the idea of bishop at f4? He doesn't want to go h takes. Was there something specific? Your captain! Oh, hang on, who's my captain? Yeah, but what's his name on Lichess? I don't want to switch windows now. I just want to stick with the end of the game. Is it F Gala? Fagala? No, who's my captain? F Gala, yeah, I thought so. And the Irishman, as far as I recall. We have a mate thread on h2. No obvious counterattack for rapid variants. You can play knight at g6, but just king takes h7. Aha, another multi-purpose move. Now, if only black had two knights, there might be some danger on g3. But just taking in defense, blocking with the pawn. And I guess pawn at f5 is coming next, knight at g6. Queen, I'd go queen h5 and then answer knight at g6 with king h7. Okay, so Crazyhome, what's he done? What's he done to his position? I thought he was doing just fine a second ago, and suddenly he's decided to sack everything. And only now he's playing queen h5, but was there any need to give away the pawn? Oh, so nice trick with knight g6. I mean, you can still take it, it's not losing. So this way to avoid a check on g6. So there's no obvious check that white can do next, but black doesn't want to take here because then there will be checks on f7 and h7. So it's a useful move to defend some of the light squares. I'm not sure he necessarily wants to take on g4, if pawn at g6 for example. So quite a complicated game to analyze, because I feel like there's been many turning points in the match. It's close to a mate, but the knight is the key piece. Queen at e8 I don't think helps very much. And you got to get rid of the knight before you do anything, if black wants to counterattack. Yeah, I mean that move is a bit slow. I think I'd probably just take on g4 if I was rapid variants, that's it. And yeah, bishop takes back is very slow. So maybe a defensive move like rook g1 or... Okay, what's he trying to do? Queen at h3? Yeah, but just... Ah, here we go. But there is knight takes f7. It must be played. Oh, bishop must sack the queen. This is all over. There's going to be a queen at g6. Queen takes g7 to finish. Yep, so it was well defended by rapid variants. Oh, it was made in 3, but he could have done it a bit faster. Doesn't matter. Yeah, so that was a very interesting game. I mean, in fact, both games were very interesting, because if you were here and you watched the first game, then it looks to me like Crazyhome had a huge attack and a huge advantage when his bishop was sitting on f7 and a couple of pawns around. And yeah, I mean, I don't think he had to allow such a counter-attack in the first place, but even when he did, just stepped the wrong way with the king. And in the second game, very hard without some analysis to determine if there was just one turning point in the game or several. It looked to me like the game turned several times. But I thought black was doing quite well, maybe around 10 moves ago. So queen at h4 is an interesting defense. And because the obvious move is, knight at g6, but then I think king h7 is a good response. And yeah, I didn't think pawn at f3 was necessary. So here, I was expecting just queen h5, and then to answer knight at g6 with king h7. And he might have played queen at h4 anyway. And then it's all about the timing in this sort of position, because with the king on g8, then you only have one piece defending, and although Crazyhome tried to put the bishop on h5 in the actual game, the rapid variants just managed to outplay him using there's multi-purpose moves. But even before this, queen at h6 is quite a good defense. Any other way to cover? Perhaps just a move like pawn at f7 would be useful as well. Maybe it wasn't necessary to put the queen on straight away. And could he have taken this with the bishop? Was there anything wrong with bishop takes g7? Oh, sorry, that was what was played. Just trying to find improvements. Bishop to f4, I didn't quite understand what the purpose was. So perhaps here there's a better way to attack for Crazyhome. See, if you want to play pawn at f3, now would be a good time. And I'm not exactly sure. It's a good point to notice that if your opponent doesn't have bishop at h3 in response, because there's a winning move knight takes, then pawn at f3 can be very nasty, because this is coming with check too. So perhaps rapid variants would try something like knight at f7 just to divert the black knight out of the way and then take on f3. Anyway, until the very finish, I didn't see any forced mates that were missed. OK is saying knight at f3 was the only point where Crazyhome was winning. So instead of knight at e2, OK is saying put the knight on f3 check. And how do you respond to king h1? So then you drop a pawn on h3, because you can, if there's a hole on g2, you can choose then to bring the knight back to h4 and then the other knight swinging back to f3 with checks. You can do everything with check if you poke a hole on g2. I think that's the point. And if knight at f3, well, pawn takes doesn't look too healthy. So what is the win? Is it knight h3 check, king h1, pawn at king takes? There is a queen sack, but then you don't have knight at f4 check. Knight at h4. I don't know about knight at h4. Bishop at g2, pawn at g5, or something like this. Anyway, I'm sure OK knows all the answers if he's analysed the game already. But yeah, they're just talking about the game in the chat. He goes, I just wanted to castle and play on, that's all. Yeah, so if king h1, I'm assuming you just go pawn at h3. Queen h5 may be also possible, but it doesn't come with a mate threat, so I just thought pawn at h3 is a good time to leave the queen hanging because this looks decisive, with the option to swing the knights around and change places with the knights. Okay, so according to OK, that knight at f3 move was the only time Crazyhome was winning. And here I actually felt like black was doing quite alright. And the material is equal. Actually, no, white is winning by a rook. But, I mean, there's a couple of rooks out of play, so if you're talking about the active pieces, then it's not so bad for Crazyhome here. And just back a few moves. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. Amazing to get back into the game after this position. And this looks absolutely dead lost. And I was wondering if he had to take with the bishop first. Because what happens if just knight takes f7, knight takes, and then bishop takes? Actually, now that I think about it some more, king h8 may actually be safe because you don't want to give that knight up too early. So, yeah, I mean, maybe RapidVariants did it the best way after all. And what about bishop takes? Because then knight takes, and there's threats coming in all angles, and you still only have one knight for h3. Yeah, I wasn't sure about bishop takes. Maybe king h8 is forced. But this looks a little bit better for white than what happened in the game. I guess it's pretty similar though. Okay, so I might leave it here and get up in a few hours' time. So I haven't actually had a sleep at all today in the last, I don't know, 16 hours or so. So late night last night, long stream earlier, and then a stream now. So thanks guys for watching, and hopefully I will get up. I'll take my noise cancelling headphones off and I'll hear my alarm in the morning, right? Yes, we hope. Alright, thanks for watching. See you guys soon.